Imagine a world where trafficked kids go unnoticed, hidden in the shadows, not by some underground operation, but by corporations you and I support every single day. Real human trafficking, fueled not by faceless criminals, but by powerful corporations making a profit. How many kids are we talking about? Thousands every year. Thousands of kids caught in the gears of an unthinkable system. Yet, what's the consequence for these corporate giants? A fine, a slap on the wrist, and on they go. Business as usual. Let's get real with the numbers. Every year, government reports estimate that around 250,000 trafficked kids are working in factories, fields, and industries across the United States. That's 250,000 children forced to work, deprived of basic rights, childhoods, stripped away for profit. Now, you'd think that kind of violation would lead to severe consequences. Think again. On average, these corporations pay fines of $10,000 to $15,000 per child caught working under their watch. That's right. In the eyes of the law, each child's life, future, and safety can be settled for what some CEOs spend on a dinner. And remember, that's not jail time or criminal charges, it's just a fine. An expense they can easily write off as a business loss. Now, let's compare that with how individuals are treated. Every year, thousands of people are charged with trafficking-related offenses in the United States, not for exploiting minors, but for consensual adult sex work. That's right. People involved in consensual transactions often face criminal charges, prison sentences, and life-altering penalties. So let's get this straight. Corporations caught with hundreds of thousands of trafficked kids in factories pay a small fine and carry on. Meanwhile, individuals involved in consensual adult activities are slapped with harsh trafficking charges. Two worlds, two justice systems. The reality is that corporate trafficking penalties don't hold a candle to the punishments individuals face for consensual acts. Corporations write off exploitation as the cost of doing business. Executives keep their jobs, their status, and their freedom. But the impact, it's devastating, and the system we've allowed is enabling it. We can't allow this double standard to continue. When children's lives are reduced to fines and consenting adults are labeled criminals, justice is failing us all. It's time for real accountability, meaningful reform, and a justice system that protects the vulnerable, not the powerful. When an individual is accused of trafficking, the system pounces. Immediate charges, jail time, criminal records that follow them forever. But corporations? They're like untouchable fortresses. There's this twisted duality in our justice system. Individuals are held to the highest criminal standard, yet corporations, even when linked to trafficking and exploitation, are usually allowed to settle, to reform, to write a check. Real accountability, nowhere to be found. Why? Because a corporation isn't viewed as a person. It's treated like a collective entity, an entity that's just too big, too complex to convict. Instead, they negotiate settlements, adjust compliance programs, pay fines, but they don't see jail cells. Executives behind these decisions walk free, untouched, as if the lives ruined are just collateral damage. And those fines they pay, they barely dent their profits. Often they're written off as just the cost of doing business. Let's talk about the victims, kids, young adults who've been trafficked, exploited for labor, for profit. You'd think at the very least that corporate settlements would focus on compensating them, supporting them. But the reality, victim assistance is a footnote. Settlements are structured to protect corporate reputation, to move on, to sweep things under the rug. The victims, they're left with minimal aid, often none at all. And here's where it gets even darker. Corporations shape the laws meant to hold them accountable. They have lobbyists, money, and influence to sway regulations in their favor. What does that mean for justice? It means corporations have designed a system where they get to play by a different rule book, one that works for them but leaves people, real people, vulnerable. So how do we change this? How do we make justice mean something, not just for individuals, but for these corporations that profit off exploitation? It starts with laws that enforce criminal penalties for executives who allow or turn a blind eye to these atrocities. We need laws that don't just fine corporations, but actually hold the people making the decisions accountable. And we need victim-centered justice, a system that prioritizes survivors, makes sure they're supported and compensated. The truth is, these corporations aren't going to change on their own. Public awareness, relentless exposure, demands for transparency, that's our power. When we know, we can't ignore it. When we demand justice, change becomes inevitable. It's time we redefine justice. No more double standards. Real accountability, real consequences. For every life impacted, for every kid trafficked, let's make sure justice is blind, whether it's a person or a powerful corporation. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, or follow for more hidden truths here in the USA.